Hey everyone, I hope you're okay and welcome back to one of the N.E.S.T Kids video. My name's Laura and today I'm going to be talking to you about International Women's Day. So what is International Women's Day? International Women's Day is celebrated every year on the 8th of March. It was first celebrated in 1909, which is over 100 years ago. When it first started, it was a way for boys and men to show how much they loved and respected the women in their lives. They gave women like their mums, grandmas, wives or girlfriends small presents and flowers. It was a bit of a mixture of Mother's Day and Valentine's Day. Soon after that, International Women's Day began to lose popularity and less people celebrated it. This was until 1975 when the United Nations, a group which helps to maintain world peace and security, began to recognise the holiday. Every year they choose a theme. This year the theme is Choose the Challenge and last year it was I Am Generation Equality. Nowadays, lots of people choose to celebrate International Women's Day by talking about women who are important to and inspire them. Lots of schools have assemblies, and in the workplace, men may celebrate their female colleagues. But why is International Women's Day important? If you want to, pause the video here and have a quick think. So these are some of the reasons I've come up with. Sadly, girls and boys and men and women still don't have equality in lots of countries across the world. Equality means that people can do the same thing and have access to the same opportunities, no matter of their gender, age, religion or nationality, just to name a few things. So for example, across the world there are 123 million girls who aren't in school, and here in the United Kingdom lots of people still consider there to be jobs for men and jobs for women, so this stops people from doing what they might actually want to do. International Women's Day helps people come together and think of ways we can achieve equality, and it's also a nice time to celebrate women and girls in our life that are important to us and inspire us. So this slide just shows what I mean by equality. So on the left, we've got scales which are unequal and boys and men are higher up than girls and women, showing that just because the boys and that the men, they have access to opportunities and things that the girls and women don't. On the right hand side, we've got a scale that represents equality, and it's balanced because the boys and the men and the girls and the women are all equal. They all have equal access to opportunities and the things that they want to do. So now we're going to take a look at some influential women, and the lady we're going to start with is called Emmeline Pankhurst. She was born on the 15th of July 1856 and died on the 14th of June 1928. Emmeline was born in Manchester and she would grow up to become one of the most influential women in British history. She's famous for being one of the leaders of the suffragette movement. She founded the Women's Social and Political Union, which was also known as the Suffragettes, in 1903. The group campaigned for an improvement to women's rights, especially women's right to vote for government. Unfortunately, by 1914, women were still unable to vote, but the suffragettes had to stop their protesting due to the outbreak of World War I. During the war, Emmeline helped women get jobs that were traditionally men's jobs because the men were away in the army. This meant that the women kept the country going. Eventually, the war ended in 1918, and at this point, women were finally given the right to vote. However, they still didn't have equality with men. So, only women aged 30 or older and owned a house, or women who were 30 and older and married to someone who owned a house were able to vote. On the other hand, any man could vote as long as they were over 21. It didn't matter if they had a house or not. 10 years later, women were finally given the same voting rights as men. Anyone aged 21 or over could vote. It didn't matter if they had a house or not, and this meant the suffragettes had finally achieved their goal. Without Emmeline and the suffragettes, it may have been years and years before women were able to vote, and so we have a lot to thank them and be grateful for. Do you think it's important that both men and women are allowed to vote? Why do you think this? The next woman we're going to look at is Manal al-Sharif, and she was born on the 25th of April 1979. Manal is a computer scientist and a women's rights activist from Saudi Arabia. So in Saudi Arabia, women were unable to move freely, and this included not being able to drive a car. There had been protests in 1990 in Riyadh, which is the capital city of Saudi. However, the people that protested had their passports taken away, and some of them even lost their jobs. So, in 2011, Manal carried out her own protest. She drove her car and she posted a video of her doing so on Facebook and YouTube, and this meant it got attention from newspapers all around the world. Following on from this, a lot of women carried out their own driving protests, and this became known as the Women to Drive movement. Eventually, King Salman, who is the king of Saudi Arabia, issued a statement saying that the right of women to drive was in keeping with the Sharia law that governs Saudi Arabia. This meant that women were able to get their licence and drive, and they've been able to do so since the 24th of June 2018. The last woman we're going to look at today is Yusra Mardini. She was born on the 5th of March 1998. Yusra is an Olympic swimmer from Syria. She was born and grew up in Damascus, but was forced to flee in August 2015 due to the Syrian civil war. Her and her family eventually settled in Germany, and she currently lives in Hamburg. During their journey to Germany, Yusra had to swim in the sea for around 3 hours because the engine on her boat stopped working. So back in Syria, Yusra had been training to become a swimmer with the help of the Syrian Olympic Committee. She continued to train with a coach in Berlin in Germany, and she dreamt of reaching the Olympics. In June 2016, Yusra was selected to be part of the first ever refugee Olympic team. She competed in the 100-metre freestyle and the 100-metre butterfly at the Rio Olympics in 2016, and she won her butterfly heat. Yusra's story is being turned into a film, and she also works with the UN. She's their youngest Goodwill ambassador, which means she uses her voice to speak up for other refugees and show how determined and resilient they are. So, what's next? On this slide, we've just got a couple of ideas for activities that you can do at home if you want to continue thinking about International Women's Day. So, one thing you could do is think about any ways men and women still aren't equal, either here in the United Kingdom or in the country you were born in. You could also think about women or girls that inspire you and write about them, or tell a friend or family member what they've done and why the woman is inspirational to you. If you want, you can research some of the women in this presentation and find out a bit more about them. And also, if you're a girl, have a think about reasons why you deserve to be celebrated this International Women's Day. Perhaps you're a great friend, you've been trying really hard with your homeschooling, or you've been a really big help around the house during lockdown. If you're not a girl, you could think of an important woman in your life, for example your mum, your sister or a teacher, and do a similar thing. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation and learning a bit about International Women's Day. I'll be doing another video next week to show you a craft related to Women's Day and that you can also use to Mother's Day. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it and I will see you next week. Have a good week, everyone.